Two flared bombs landed near the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in the central town of Caesarea. And this is according to the security forces in Israel. Describing the incident as serious and a dangerous escalation, police and Shin Bet Internal Security Agency in a joint statement said that Netanyahu and his family were not in the house at the time that these flares were fired. President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, strongly condemned the incident, emphasizing the urgent need to investigate and deal with those responsible for the incident as soon as possible. Similarly, opposition Israel Beitenu party leader condemned the incident, saying that it signified a step up in the attempt to harm the democratic institution of Israel. Lieberman extended his full support to Shin Bet and Israeli police in the investigation and underscored that those involved must be brought to justice. Israeli military claimed Hezbollah fired more than 80 missiles into Israel over the past day, of which they said approximately 10 projectiles were intercepted. Air raid sirens had been activated in Haifa and surrounding communities following the heavy rocket barrage by the Lebanese group. Hezbollah said it fired missiles at 5 Israeli military facilities in and near Haifa. The group in a statement said it targeted a technical base, the Haifa Naval Base, the Stella Maris Naval Base and 2 other bases near Haifa, one of which they said was home to an Israeli army gas station. 2 people were injured, according to the Israeli military, when a synagogue was hit in the bay. Also, separately, Hezbollah said it hit an Israeli tank in South Lebanon near the village of Shama, which is around 5 kilometers from the border with Israel. This as the Israeli ground forces reached their deepest point in Lebanon since they invaded the country 6 weeks ago, before pulling back after battles with Hezbollah militants. Without confirming the same, Israel's military said in a statement that its troops continue with their limited and localized operations in southern Lebanon. Israeli warplanes pounded Beirut's southern suburbs known as Dahiyeh, a Hezbollah stronghold, and several other areas including the port city of Tyre. An airstrike on the northeastern village of Kharaibe killed a couple and their 4 children. Speaking of the other front, in Gaza, 10 people were killed, 20 others were wounded as 2 Israeli missiles hit a UN-run school sheltering the displaced in the Shati refugee camp. Also, a strike on a house in the Nuseirat killed at least 7, including a child and 3 women. All right, for more on this, we are now being joined by Adrian Calamel from New York. Adrian is a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute as well as terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar. Adrian, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me on World DNA. Adrian, last time an attack of this sort happened at the Prime Minister's residence in Caesarea. The Prime Minister called it a grave mistake, and days later, Israel did carry out those strikes on Iran, targeting very strategic points, which we have discussed in the past. This time too, it's being referred to as a dangerous escalation. How do you see Israel reacting, and against who all?
Yeah, Shivan, great to be here. Great to see you as always. Yeah, I think everybody needs to pause and wait to see what actually happened here. When Netanyahu was targeted before, that was a drone. These were flares. We're not talking about ballistic missiles. We're not talking about drones. We're not talking about mortars being set up. These were a couple of flares. And I'm not by any means minimizing the danger of that. There's a security lapse there where how would somebody be able to get in that close a range to launch a couple of flares at Netanyahu's residence, even though they weren't there? So I think the concern is security. And yeah, we have to wait to find out what happens. Is it somebody within the Israeli population that did it? I don't think we can point fingers at any actors right now, just because it's a really unsophisticated attack.
I just want to come back to what you just mentioned. I want to take it a little further from there. Like you mentioned, is it someone from within the country? Is there internal strife reflecting in this incident? And why I'm asking this is because opposition figures have denounced the incident, while Justice Minister Levin has said that it is part of a violent coup attempt and calls for judicial overhaul to be revived. Do you see any kind of sense that this could have come from within? Because there is a distinction between flares and a drone in terms of range as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm leaning towards, is that this is more internal. We have to look that over the last year, pressure has been increasingly mounting on the Netanyahu government to one, end the war, two, get the hostages back, to not get involved in Lebanon. And there's part of the Israeli population that is really upset and quite vocal about that. Now, are there elements that are in that disenfranchised group that would launch a couple flares at the prime minister's residence? I would hazard to say, yeah, there probably are. So that's why I'm saying we need to kind of, and Shin Bet is investigating. I think we need to figure out who it is, how it happened, and then go from there before we point fingers at the Islamic Republic, Hezbollah, or any type of operatives in the West Bank that could have pulled this off.
Adrian, now if we even look at where Caesarea is on the map, it's far away from Lebanon. Do you feel flares have that kind of range to make it all the way from Hezbollah side and reach Caesarea?
I just don't see it happening.
Suspect anything further than that? Just talking about range.
Range-wise, no. I just can't. You have to have range. You have to have accuracy. You're not getting either with those flares, so that's why I'm saying this is more of an internal thing. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong on this, but right now I'm leaning towards an internal issue.
Understood. Fine. We of course need to wait and hear from what the security agencies are going to finally conclude on this. It is still very recent. It is developing, and as and when we get a confirmed statement from the security agencies in Israel, perhaps then there will be further things to discuss on why it happened and what it means and what perhaps Israel is going to do next. Thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast on World DNA. Adrian, always a pleasure speaking with you. That was Adrian Calamil joining me from New York.